So now we'll just going to cover the topic of proxy endpoint and virtual host. So APG, what happens in APG? Okay, in APG, the gateway that installed. Okay, APG gateway usually it is multi-tenant. Multi-tenant means on the same set of servers. Okay, on same set of servers. Okay, APG you can host multiple APG organizations. Okay, and then in each org you can have multiple environments, and then in each environment you can receive traffic on multiple host names, protocol, right, like HTTP or HTTPS, okay, and port numbers, okay. So it is possible with APG. So in APG you can do this thing, right? So then in APG, what you do is we have a configuration called virtual host. So if you remember last time I had showed you this virtual host configuration, okay. And in virtual host, what happens? Virtual host is a configuration that allows you to host multiple domains on a single server. So on one server or one set of servers, you can host multiple host names or multiple domains. Okay. So usually what happens is for virtual host is basically configuration. So in each virtual host, when you get a virtual host, you define host name. We call it host alias or host name, which is also nothing but a domain name. So usually like api.yourcompany.com or api test.company.com, like this, correct? So some domain, then protocol and port number. So now one more thing is that the combination of host name and protocol and port number, that combination has to be unique globally. When I say globally, around the globe. And also this subdomain must be registered by, let's say, GoDaddy or whatever, right? So every subdomain has to be registered there. So there is some registry, internet registry. So your network team, usually someone from the network side and everything, usually they will network admin and all, they will go and they will register this subdomain. Okay. So your subdomain or domain name will be registered. Okay, first that has to be registered, and it should be mapped to APG IPs. So then at the time of registration you have to do a mapping that, okay, if the call is coming, it should come to APG IPs. That setting is done by the network admin guys. We don't have to bother. Usually what happens, only thing that we care about is having the certificate if it is HTTPS traffic. So if we are receiving traffic on HTTPS, in that case we need to have certificate and private key. So that is something that we generate private key, we provide it, and request certificate request. Then the network guys will generate certificate and they will provide it to us. Okay. And then for each combination, so for each combination of the that's why, so usually uh, if we are having HTTPS protocol, right? If our protocol is HTTPS, okay, then you have to provide certificates also in the virtual host. If it is normal HTTP, but normal HTTP no one uses anymore. So it is a very big no. No one uses HTTP, plain HTTP anymore. For security reason, we always use HTTPS. And for that, we provide the host name, we provide the protocol and port number. The default port for HTTPS is 443. Okay, so that is a default port. Okay, and then we provide the certificate. Because it is HTTPS, we also provide the certificate information. So all this information is stored in the virtual host. Okay, and that is globally unique. Then only uh, anyone, the client is making call, then only the traffic will come to your APG in that environment. Okay.
Got it.
So virtual hosts are created on the environment level. So you can have multiple virtual hosts if you want, okay, based on the requirement. Okay. And then whatever virtual host that you have given in your proxy. So when you create a proxy, you have to provide a virtual host. Okay. So you have to provide which virtual host you want to use, and whatever domain name and protocol and all that is information is given, APG will be available on that domain and protocol. Okay. Now, after the so virtual host contains information like your host name, protocol, and uh,
Port
this
number.
port number. After that, whatever is after that, so in the URL, so that is only host and protocol part. After that, you have to provide a URL, and that is given as the base path. So after each proxy, so each proxy must have at least one base path. So it is mandatory. So then only APG will know which proxy to go to. So based on, usually the naming convention is name of the entity. For example, if you are creating order proxy, then it will be order slash v1, or customer, it will be customer slash v1, like this. Okay, so usually this base path is also provided in APG. So in when you in the proxy endpoint section, okay, in proxy endpoint section you provide virtual host, and you also provide the base path. So virtual host will have your protocol, port, domain, whatever. Okay, and base path will have the base path is basically entry point. Base path is the entry point within the proxy. Okay, so also within the proxy, the combination of the port, combination of the virtual host and the base path has to be unique. So usually what happens is, in practical way, when we are deploying a proxy, host name of Apigee is not going to change in the environment. In one Apigee environment, usually the host name, the virtual host is same. Okay, so the host name is same. So mostly what we do is we ensure that the base path is unique. So usually, because the combination must be unique, and if either you have to provide a different virtual host, okay, or you have to provide a different base path. But within environment, usually we don't support multiple virtual host or multiple domain names. For the one environment, usually one domain we define. Correct. For like example, like for dev environment, it will be API dev.company.com. For test, it will be API test. For production, it will be api.company.com, like this. Okay, so that way we usually provide that one virtual host is usually kept for one environment. Okay, you can have multiple, but obviously usually in a real life scenario, you will not go to your network team and ask them to provision 10 domains, right? So that will not be possible. So usually in a within the environment, usually one virtual host or one host name is defined. Okay, and then so for that reason, your base path has to be unique, because if base path is same, Apigee will throw error. Okay, so yeah. So now next is how Apigee call is sent to the correct virtual host, right? So how Apigee will identify which virtual host to pick and which to send. Okay, so usually that is, so usually yeah, so usually that combination, as I mentioned, right, you can have virtual host and base path. So because of this, Apigee will map when the request is coming. Apigee will check, okay, what is the host name and everything. It will check, okay, this is the virtual host, and then it will check the base path, and then Apigee will come. Or if, based on the matching base path, Apigee will come inside that proxy. Okay, so then it will, for example, if the path is starting with after the host name, path is like starting with slash store slash v1 and then something something, then Apigee will come to this proxy. If it is like order slash v1 something other thing, then it will go to order proxy, if there is order proxy. Okay, like now in Apigee, usually within one API proxy, okay, within one API proxy, usually there is one proxy endpoint, okay, and then uh, sometime uh, there can be more than one proxy endpoint also. Okay, so usually proxy endpoint is a section that deals with the proxy, right? So sorry, consumer part in the consumer facing part. So mostly within one proxy, you can have multiple proxy endpoint, but that is very, very rare. In most of the time, usually we have one proxy endpoint. Okay, so that is the most common scenario. Only in very rare scenario, you might want more than one proxy endpoint. One I remember was for one of the APIs. So for we had to enable streaming for say download endpoint within the same proxy, like the URL was pretty much same. So we for download one, we created another proxy endpoint. It had streaming enabled. All the other was normal proxies. When I streaming enabled, it is for big size file upload download. Okay. In usually in Apigee, the payload maximum payload that in comes is 10 MB. Okay. So that is the APG maximum payload size. APG doesn't support more than that. If you want to support more than that, in that case you have to enable streaming field, streaming property. So if streaming is enabled, then you can send APG will simply bypass the payload. APG will not do anything on the payload, and and then you can do the upload, download, those kind of thing. Okay, so that is the reason. Usually, when in some very rare scenarios or rare use cases, you might need more than one, but most of the time, I think one proxy endpoint. Okay.
Okay.
Now, just another before we move to the next slide. One more thing here is that overlapping base path, right? So in case of base path, overlapping base paths. Uh, Give me 1 minute.
Sure.
Yep, sorry. Now, so in this case of overlapping base path, right? So if we are having multiple base path which can overlap with each other, how APG will determine which proxy to go, correct? So if there are three proxies with three base path, so let's say one is like one proxy with only slash, okay? Another proxy with retail v1, and third is a retail, then star, then uh,
Stores.
stores. So like 3 1, okay?
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Sorry, some office thing is coming also. No, sorry. So yeah, let's say we have three. So basically, star means wild card, correct? Star means anything. Star means wild card. So that is like three things. So now let's see in first scenario. If in scenario one, the incoming request has this thing. If incoming request is retail V1 stores, okay, then what APG does is APG will match the APG will do the match from left to right. Okay, APG will start matching left to right. So first retail, it matches this one, blue and green, correct? Second v1, it matches v1. Now it
Good.
matches v2 also, but v1 is exact match and v2 is wild card match, correct? So here v1, sorry, star with v1 is wild card, correct? So here it will prefer, if in case of multiple possibilities, it will prefer the exact match. So here it will go to v1. Okay, so it will match with the v1. So if retail V1 stores path come, it will go to the retail V1, the blue color one. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
If retail V2 store or V3 store, V4 store, whatever comes, then it will all go to green one, because if exact match is not possible, next preference is wild card match. Okay. Now anything else which doesn't start with the word retail. Okay. If there is anything else comes which doesn't start with the word retail, then this it will go to the red one. So that will become a default proxy. Okay. So if none of
Okay.
them are matching, it will go to the star one with the red one, which is like a default. So customers, users, partners, whatever, right? So that will go to that one. Okay, the red one.
Okay.
Okay. So and so it will start matching the segment one, segment two, segment three, whichever has the most matching segment, and also the exact match that will be preferred. Okay, and then APG will go inside that proxy endpoint. So yeah, that is on the proxy endpoint and virtual host section of APG. Okay. And next is introduction with some things like condition flows and policies. So we'll cover this part also. So here, so in APG, like any other programming language or platform, APG also has the variables, and APG has two kind of variable. One is predefined variables and custom variables. So predefined variables are like the variables, which are automatically set on certain scenarios. Some of them are set when the request comes, some of them are set on the policy, some of them on the target, lot of things. So those are set automatically, you don't have to do, and you can utilize those variables anytime after they are set. Okay. And second is the custom one, which you can create. So you can either create it within some policy, or in if you are writing say JavaScript code or whatever, you can create it inside a code, or you can do it in the policy. Okay. So APG variables are global in nature. When I say global, means from the time they are created, okay, from the time they are created till the final response is sent, okay, till that time you can access those variables. Okay. And also some of the predefined variables are read only. You can only read and use it in some condition to do a equal, not equal, or whatever, that matching. Or sometime some of them are read write, so that you can update. Okay. So now for variable, there is a variable reference page. It is there in the slide also, if you see here. Let me open this. Or let me just simply go to docs.ap.com. So if I go to docs.ap.com, okay, here let me type variables reference, flow variable reference. Okay. So it will be the page. So let me share this page with you also. So please make a note of this link. This is very useful link during the project work, and obviously no one will remember all the variable names, at least not for a good amount of time, right? Only after you are done with lot of practice, you might start remembering variable names. So till the time, this is a like a good reference to have. So these kind of important links, you can make a note and save it. Okay. This
Okay.
can be real helpful. Okay. So I've just sent in the chat, so you can copy and save it somewhere in your notepad. Okay. Just
Great.
so here you can see these variables. There are different kind of variables. Okay. And here each like they have like a prefix, like variable with APG prefix. So there are like APG dot matrix dot policy dot policy name. So this is like variable when for every policy it will start. Okay. Every policy, this variable will set. Then API proxy dot name, it will set at the proxy request level, it will set, and you will get the name of the proxy, or proxy dot revision, so proxy revision. So all kind of thing. So all like the client variables, so from consumer, client IP, client email address, client host name, whatever. If you want to read some information from the incoming client, whatever is possible, it will populate that and you can read it. Okay. From the consumer incoming client. Okay. And there are like all these variables, the error variables, request variables. So there is a message or request. So request dot so usually for request you have a request dot content. Okay. So it will give you full request content as a string. For response, they have response dot content like this. Okay. So we have request, response, message variables, all lot of variables are there. And obviously based on, when we do lab, we will use some of the variables obviously. And also, in the project work also, when you want to check which variable is the correct one and all those stuff, you can simply come here and use it. Okay. And just below this one, there is a conditions reference. Okay. So conditions reference is uh, like uh, here, let me give you this link also. So like any other programming language, conditions add a what you say, programmability, okay, or decision making power, right? So you conditions allow you to control the execution. So it is like a decision control system. So based on the requirement, I mean, do you want to activate certain things, or do you want to um, do you want to execute a policy, or do you want to go inside a flow, or anything? So a lot of things you can simply do it uh, do based on those conditions. So conditions allow you to control a policy, control a variable, or even all the resources that we give, right? So all the resources which are there, right? I was told that, for example, user proxy, one resource will be create user, another will be update user, another will be delete user, right? So those resources which we have, right, for those resources, right, those resources, uh, you can uh, for each resource you can define the condition, right? So when the request comes, how would we know that okay, this is for create? So you can define the flow. So flow, when you're defining the flow, so you can simply set those. Okay, so you can simply set those conditions. Based on condition matching, your API call will go to that specific flow like this. Okay, so here, for example, conditions are like this. So usually for conditions we use condition tag. Okay, and in condition tag we write uh, this is like you have the variable. It can be predefined variable or it can be custom variable. So you have variable, then whatever variable name, then you use operator. It supports all the standard operators which are there, equal, not equal, and everything. And then you match with the value, correct, whatever value you want to match it. And also, apart from the standard, there are some other operators also, like you have matches path. Matches path will have the, again, as the name suggests, it matches a path segment or path format. Okay, it can have exact match or wildcard match and all those stuff. And for example, here if you want to match with, if request.header.accept equal to application JSON, means header accept header uh, is having the value as application JSON, then you can use this policy XML to JSON like this. Okay, so in the flow also, so I was the flow basically resource. So for example, if you want to do something for the get, so this flow is used only when the method is get. So when the request method is get, then control will go to this flow and all the policies will execute like this. Okay, and these are the standard ones. So for path, APG supports this thing. So you have a star and double star. So star is a single path element, double star is multiple path segment. Okay, so you have star means only one segment of path it will match. If there is the star star means multiple segments. Okay, so you have for path pattern also, you have pattern matching. Basically path pattern you can match with star, double star, and everything. Okay, and then here this is also the list of the operators. Okay, so this, yeah, so conditions reference already I said, right? So if you go down to the conditions reference, then you see, so in APG another very interesting bit here, in either you can use symbol. Okay, if you are using condition, so either you can define this symbol or you can even give the condition in the word. So there are some predefined words which are reserved, okay, for giving conditions. So for example, you can use this not sign, this symbol, or you can use not word. Both of them will have same. Either you can use equals or like equals like this. So either you can use this equals sign or you can use this equals word. APG will
Yes.
allow both. Okay,
Okay.
even you can write greater, either use a greater than sign or you can even type greater than. So both the things are allowed in APG. Okay, in condition tag the word is also allowed and the symbol is also allowed. Okay, so that is one thing in APG, so you can do that. Okay, and here is just a table which has the uh, RHS, LHS, and all those stuff. So like boolean to boolean and everything, what is the result, but that is not. APG supports null also. So when you say null, as we know, null is like nothing, right? So APG supports null operator like Java or any programming language. Okay, and based on the result, you can treat null as a true or false. So you can use null also. Null is a reserved word in APG, and U double L small all and U double L. Null is a reserved word, and true and false also are used for boolean, true and false. Okay, for example, this is null or is thing, so you can use it. Okay, so you can use null operator, you can use to check if some value is not really set at all. Okay, and null is different than empty string, remember that, right? So empty string is means it is still a string which is empty, but null is this value is not present at all. Okay, so sometimes null is different from the empty string. So when variable is not set, then that is null. But if the variable is set with empty string, then still it is empty string, it is not null, right? So we need to be very careful when we are using null operator. So yeah, this is on the conditions and all. So just I already gave you some idea about variables and all. And then there is a this variable proxy dot path suffix. So after the base path, okay, after the base path of proxy, whatever comes, we call it path suffix. So it is like a path segment which is after the base path. Okay, so we call it proxy dot path suffix. So proxy dot path suffix variable store the path suffix of the URL. So in the URL, Apigee will match, okay, whatever this part is still base path, whatever is still blue. After the base path, whatever come, that will be the path suffix. Okay. And usually proxy.path suffix is a very popular variable when we want to define the flows. So for flow, usually we use proxy.path suffix, which will tell the after base path, whatever the path segment. And then we also use the request.verb. So request.verb uses tells the method, request method, get or post or whatever. So these two variables are used a lot when we are defining the flows or resources. Okay. So this, so conditions I already told you. So this the same thing you can, and in conditions you can use and or also. So you can have multiple conditions and you can use and operator or operator. So if condition one and condition two both, or operator also, you can use that also. Okay. So you can use combination. And then in the pattern matching, so this we have double equals, that is the equals, which is like exact match. Now you have this uh, matches operator. Okay, so there is a matches operator. So matches operator, if you are using matches operator and you give star, so what it will do is it will anything with the word files. Okay, anything with the word slash files, it will match. So for example, it will match slash files, whatever this thing, and slash files cts, anything with the starting with the word slash file, it will match. Then Java regex you can ignore. I have not seen anyone use it, and no one even remembers. Because if only if you are very good with Java regex pattern and all, then you can use it. But I have not seen anyone use this operator ever, and no one uses that. It is very complicated. I mean, a little bit different than the other standard. Okay. So Java regex you can simply ignore. I have not used anywhere. I have not even seen anyone using this. Then we have path matching. So path matching is again here, as I mentioned. So you have matches path operator. So path matching, you have a matches path operator. This is used for path suffix when you want to match path suffix against a pattern. Okay, so you can have single star means one path segment, double star means multiple path segment. Okay, so that is, so double star means single and multiple both. So double star means even single also it will match, and more than one also it will match. Okay, so that is. So API proxy flow, if you remember, I told you last time, right? So here when the control comes, call will come to pre-flow, right? Here it will execute the policies which are there in pre-flow. So pre-flow is like all for all the resources, pre-flow, any policy on pre-flow will be executed. Then APG will select one of the conditional flows. If it is, for example, create operation, then it will go with the post one, and any policies which are attached there, it will execute those policies. And then again, any other common thing, if you want to execute, you can do post flow. Okay, you can put it in the post flow. Then the next sequence will be in the target endpoint section. It will again execute the pre-flow, conditional flow, post flow if it is defined. If there is any policy defined there in any place, it will execute those. And then it will go to backend. And when the response comes from backend, again it will go to here the pre-flow, conditional flow, post flow. And then here again also pre-flow, conditional flow, and post flow. So all these things it will execute in this sequence, and then it will send the response. And again, all of these sections are optional. Okay, if you don't want to attach any policy, Apg will not block it. Okay, if it comes, it will forward, and then it will use only if based on the business requirement. If you want to do security policy, rate limiting, and other things, then you can simply attach the required policies there. Okay, so again, as I told, yeah, conditional flow is I mean we have all these different flows and all. Okay, so which I already explained. Now moving to the policies. So policies are the out of box pre-built modules that implement any specific logic. Okay, any logic or any activity that we want to do, we create a policy for that. Okay, so policy allow things like, so for example, you want to do rate limiting, we want to do transformation, we want to do mediation. Okay, we want to do security, all kind of things, even without writing a code and all those stuff. So policies will allow us to do. So it is like XML based configuration. You drag and drop. So from Apigee dashboard or Apigee UI, you can drag and drop the policies, you can attach the policy. Okay, and then you can update the configuration. So there will be some default values. If you want to change or modify some configuration value, you can go ahead and do that, and then it will apply. So you don't have to write any kind of code and all. That policy will apply the feature. Okay, also if you want to run the custom code, if there is a requirement that okay, something is not possible via policies, you want to run custom code, so you can use the custom code also. Okay, so that also is supported. Okay, so then in policies we use variables to control the behavior, and you can set the variable, you can read the variable, you can modify the variable based on the requirement. Okay, now so there are some policies which are given. Again, these policies are just these policies are here just as a introduction. So this is again in the introduction part. Okay, we will cover all these policies, all of these policies that we are going to cover, we will cover all of them in detail, and we will do a lot of labs also. Okay, so we don't have to remember this policy right now. This is just to get a familiarity or overview. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, for example, so this is uh, so for example, here first set is a uh, traffic management policies. So traffic management policies are like here you want to do the spike arrest, for example. So spike arrest protect against if there is sudden burst of traffic. If there is sudden burst of traffic, it will protect against that. Okay, so it is there. And then next is the quota policy. So if you want to give a certain amount of request to a client, for any client, if you want to allow them a certain amount of request. Okay, so you want to allow them like 100 in 1 hour or 100 or 200, it will guarantee it to execute. Okay, then we have a caching policy. So caching policy will allow you to obviously add the caching features. Okay, so caching and all. And then we have a response cache. So normal caching, if you want to only cache a certain section, okay, certain section of data, then you use caching policies. But if you want to if you want to put the full response, okay, full response, then Apg has a response cache policy for that. So those kind of.
Okay.
So this is the first set of policy. Then we have for security we have verify uh, verify API key, which will identify verify the API key and identify which is the consumer app which is calling. Okay, then we have OAuth 2 policies which will enable all the OAuth 2 things. Okay, then we have for OAuth we have another policies for getting setting some OAuth v2 OAuth v2 what you say uh, data. Okay, or set certain attributes or data and all those stuff. So those kind of things we can do with the OAuth v2 policies, getter setter policies for OAuth 2. And then we have for security we have basic authentication, which is the standard basic auth feature. Then we have uh, JWT policies to generate, verify, decode JWTs, JWS. Then we have generate and validate SAML assertion policies, LDAP policies. So these are some of them. Then we have a JSON threat protection, which protect against any malicious JSON payload. Same for XML threat protection to any malicious XML payload. Then we have a regex protection policy, which is protect, it will do a regular expression match. And if you want to protect against SQL injection attacks or any kind of injection attacks, then you can use this regular expression protection. Then we have access control policy. Access control policy, we like either whitelist or blacklist IP address and range and everything. So these are some of the policies here. As I said, all these all this chapter number 5 will be fully dedicated to all of these policy. We will cover in detail. We will also do a lot of labs. Okay. And then we have in the mediation section, we have simple assign message policy. Assign message is very popular policy. We will cover in chapter number 6 again. So where you want to create any variable, update variable, replace the payload, replace the variable, any kind of thing we use in the assign message policy. Okay. Then we have extract variable policy. So if you want to extract information from either request or response or header, whatever header payload, either from header or either from payload or anything, then you can extract it from there and put it in your own custom variable. So that is the policy to use to extract information and put it in a custom variable. So that extract variable policy is used in that case. Then we have key value map operation policy. So key value map is like a, a place to store data. So any configuration data we put in key value maps. And then we have policies to read from key value map, write to key value map, and delete from key value map. Okay. Then we have raise fault policies. So we want to uh, throw any exception and all, we use raise fault policy for that. Then we have other mediation policies, like as the name suggests, JSON to XML. It will convert from JSON to XML with some configurations. Then the reverse XML to JSON. Then we have XSL transformation policy. So if you want to transform from one kind of XML to another kind of XML, you can do that using XSLTs and all. And you also have certain other options, like even from one XML to HTML format. So one kind of markup language to another kind of markup language, you can do that. And then we have SOAP message validation policy. We call it validation policy. So if you want to validate against some XSD schema or WSDL or whatever, you can do it. But yeah, message validation I have not used. I don't remember if I have used message validation, because mostly we deal with REST, correct? Because of the REST thing. So XSL transform and the SOAP message, those are like, I mean, very rarely that you will use it, because mostly we deal with uh, this thing, JSON data and all those stuff. So that we can do. But yeah, XSL transform or message validation, those will be very rare. Now the next set of policies is like extension policies, we call them. So like if you want to use a custom JavaScript code, you use JavaScript policy. Then if you want to use a custom Java code, use Java callout policy. Then if you want to call some third party service, internal service or other external service, whatever, you can use service callout policy. Or if you want to call a shared flow, so shared flow has a reusable policies. So if you want to have a reusable logic, you can create policies and put it in the shared flow. And if you want to execute the policies which are inside a shared flow, we use flow callout policy. So flow callout will call the shared flow, and the shared flow policies will be executed. Okay. Then some other are like, we have message logging. So it will log the information to syslog server. So usually Splunk or some other syslog server. Remember, Apigee does not log payload information, right? So some we need for better troubleshooting and issue tracking and all. We use this message logging policy, which will log it to either sometime on Apigee private cloud. It can do the disk log on the local disk also. But usually in Apigee public cloud and all, we usually have a remote server. So there will be some remote log server, and you send them, you can do the log message log. Then we have statistics character policy, so which extract the data from API call for analytics and all. And then we have extension call out. So yeah, this will call all the Google Cloud and other services. So yeah, these are some of the policies that are used there. Okay. Now policies are usually, so as I mentioned in the flow, uh, depending on requirement, you can attach policy. So for example, if you apply a policy on pre-flow, so every time a request comes, any policy on pre-flow will execute. Okay. Then whichever condition matches. So if, so for example, only condition 2 is matching, then condition 1 policy will not execute. For that specific request, only condition 2 policy will execute. Okay. And then whatever is in the post flow, that also policy will execute like this. Okay. So that is how the Apigee flow works. Usually, as a thumb rule, security policies are always on the pre-flow, because you want them to execute always, security, rate limiting and all. And then any kind of request specific payload validation, extraction validation, those kind of things are usually in the conditional flow. Okay. because for example in get call you will get query parameter, you might get query parameter. In post you will have a JSON payload, it will not be in the get, correct? So if you have a policy to extract JSON payload and validate the JSON data, right, so that will be in the conditional flow, it will not be in all the place, right? So that is the scenario. And then we have this example of conditions. So for example, every flow usually will have a condition. In those condition we define either the path suffix and request method. So these are the very well, so for example, if you want to do get order, so only if the path suffix matching slash order and method is get, then the control will come inside this. And inside this again, inside this also you have a condition for the policy. So if the request dot query param dot filter, if there is a query parameter name filter which is not null, then only Apigee will use it, execute this extract variable policy. Otherwise it will throw error. Okay. And then we have another, for example, where you see verify API key policy, that that is in the pre-flow, because obviously you want to ensure that when the request is coming, you have uh, for all the requests you are verifying the API key, right? So those kind of policy will be in the pre-flow. Okay. Now, another important aspect is how to choose the policy naming convention. So, what when you are giving the name of the policy, how to what is the best way? So, as per official Google recommendation, this is official Google recommendation. Okay, when you are giving the name of the policy, so you define the two part. Part one is the policy. Policy type abbreviation. Okay, so for example, we verify API key, so that is VAK. Assign message AM. Again, right? And the second part will be, okay, it will the what activity it is doing. So first thing, what is the policy type? The policy type short for abbreviation, and second is the what activity that policy is doing. So just by looking at the policy name, any new developer who is not worked even previously, any new developer should also easily understand what is the policy type, what kind of policy it is, and what actually activity it is doing. So for example, that's why you can have VAK verify key. Anyone will understand, okay, it is verify API key policies and it is verifying key. AM remove header, remove it is assign message, removing header, assign message, building request, O2 OAuth to verify token, OAuth to generate auth code, all kind of thing, right? JavaScript clean response. So just by looking at the name and all those stuff, people should easily understand. Okay. So that is on the policy naming conventional. Any doubt or any question so far in any of these?
Yeah, I'm good, Manish.
No, sorry. Now here few things. So for example, in the path pattern matching operator, so we have matches operator. So matches operator is like basically it is for a simple pattern matching. You only give if you add a star, then it will match zero or more. Okay, so if it is zero or more occurrence of any character, so for example, if you don't give star, then it will do exact match. So here if you matches cats, it will do exact match. Okay, if anything else it will not. Then if you give cat star, if you give cat star, it will match cat, cats, or anything with the word cat, catch, APG, whatever. As long as it start with the cat / cat, it will match. Okay. And also it is by default a case sensitive. So if you give capital A, right, so it will not match with the small a. So remember that. So if capital A, small a, this it treat differently. And now if you want to use star also as a star character, okay, if you want to match with the star symbol, if you want to treat star as a star symbol and not as a special wild card, okay, if you don't want to treat star as a wild card, but you want to use star as a star character, then you have to use percent. So percent, if you give percent, then it will treat star as a normal star character, it will not treat as a special symbol. Okay, not treat as a wild card. Okay, so it will match with star ATS. Okay, like this. So it means it will do a escape. Java regex you can ignore. This is, they have different regex operator and no one remembers all this, so you can ignore that. We don't even use it. Okay, so it's unnecessary. Now matches path, as I told, so matches path is used for path matching, and then you can have a single path. You have a single path segment. You have star, and then you have a double star, means it is for uh, multi, single and multiple both. So if it is one or more than one, then use double star. And here, for if you are giving cats slash star, right, if you are giving slash star, it will not match with cats, it has to check with the slash. Okay, so it will do a slash also, it will match with the cats slash, then cats 2, but it will not match with slash 2 slash toys, that because it is no extra element. If you go double star, then it will match with everything. So even 2 slash toys also, even whatever 2 more than 2 also it will match. Okay, 2 3 4 it will match. Okay, so that is what it do. Usually we use this matches path with the yeah, when we are using proxy.path suffix variable, then we use this operator. So proxy.path suffix matches path this, or proxy.path suffix matches path.